Call to order the regular meeting of the Dayton City Council for February 20th. Stand for the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilors can mic up. Councilor Henderson is going to be online.
Henderson.
All right. Oh,
Jumping ahead.
okay.
That's coming.
We have at least one change to the agenda. We're going to move item F up just under consent. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
You would just
Just above.
before
Above
consent.
Yep, just right above consent,
Yep.
right before consent.
That's the only change I have.
Why don't we just keep him here for, just so we have somebody here for the whole meeting? No, not you.
Okay, any motion and a second then?
Motion, second.
Okay, any more discussion on the agenda? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. Motion carries. Let's go ahead with the oath, Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Tonight, I have the distinct honor to swear in firefighter Villanueva. Firefighter Villanueva has done 200 hours of training for the EMR, Fire 1, Fire 2, and Hazmat. So I want to give him a congratulations. And I want to thank his family for the support that they give him to do this.
Be really loud.
No problem. Thank his family for the support that it takes to be a firefighter. It's a lot of time away. Christmas, Easter, anniversaries, and so forth. So, Brian, if you'd come up, do the honor here, sir. All right. Repeat after me, please. I, Brian Villanueva,
I, Brian Villanueva,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to do my duty as a firefighter
to do my duty as a firefighter
for the city of Dayton
for the city of Dayton
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
to serve my commanding officers
to serve my commanding officers
with respect and dignity,
with respect and dignity,
to serve the citizens
to serve the citizens
of the city of Dayton
of the city of Dayton
with compassion and courage
with compassion and courage
and integrity,
and integrity,
and to uphold the laws and constitutions
and to uphold the laws and constitutions
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the state of Minnesota,
the state of Minnesota,
and the city of Dayton.
and the city of Dayton.
So help me God.
So help me God.
All right. Came better prepared tonight. I actually have a badge, unlike last time. So Ryan's wife is out of town this evening, so he had asked that I pin him. So Ryan, I grab the badge. I don't know if I can. There we go. Let's see. Try not to stick you too hard. Congratulations, sir. Appreciate all your work.
All right. We'll give you guys a few minutes if you want to clear out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner, you want to come up?
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having me. As you know, I'm Kevin Anderson. I'm your County Commissioner. For those that haven't met me yet, I was elected in 2020. I came from with a 20-year background in IT, and this slide has some of the roles that I've previously held and currently hold on the board and some of the appointments that I have. I don't like looking at my face, so I just breeze through that one. Some of the things that I try to do on a yearly basis is visit all of my city councils that I represent in the 7th District and provide some of the highlights that Hennepin County has done throughout the last year and kind of give a preview for some of the work that we're doing in the next year. So when I took office, a few of the main highlights that priorities that I had was expanding broadband infrastructure, making sure that we had better access to mental health services, and supporting our veteran community, just to name a few of the items. So along the broadband expansion, since 2020, Hennepin County has allocated $10 million into broadband expansion and broadband availability. In District 7 alone, we've partnered with multiple cities to expand access, write letters of support, partner with the state of Minnesota to get the border broadband grants that have been made available. And we've been pretty successful. I think to date, we've helped connect nearly 1,000 homes in District 7 alone that were previously unserved or underserved. So it's been we're just getting going, and it's been pretty fruitful so far. So if there's areas in Dayton that there's a need, feel free to contact my office. I can get you connected with our Office of Broadband and Digital Inclusion to figure out ways that we can partner and expand that work. Another area that I've been really working hard on is expanding our roads and bridges infrastructure. One of the biggest accomplishments that I've had so far in my 2 years is working with the rest of the board to secure funding for the 610 completion. We all know road projects take a long time, and 610 was no exception. I think it took nearly 50 years to get it to an almost finished state. And this final funding gap partnered with state money, federal money, and local money to make sure that we had the final the money available and needed to finish that final design. I've also been honored to be able to be a part of a number of community outreach, working with our Productive Day program, our tree planting through our Public Works. I know that Dayton has, Hennepin County has partnered with Dayton on a tree canopy grant program, and we're looking at finding ways that we can treat trees as infrastructure so that we can better manage our natural resources in Hennepin County, and then continue to expand and partner with our cities to take care of everything that we all care about. Veterans work has been a priority of mine since taking office. When I took office, I was really surprised to learn that veterans really didn't show up a lot in our county priorities. And so that was one of the first things that I did, is change it into our legislative priorities. That had a cascading effect where the first year I took office, we were able to partner with the MACV, an organization, the Minnesota Assistance Council for Veterans, to sell some tax forfeited properties to house unhoused veterans. Last year, we expanded on that work. We purchased a hotel in Robbinsdale and conveyed that ownership to MACV to expand and create even more affordable housing and supportive housing for veterans. I'm looking forward to finding more opportunities. I've worked with Magnus Veterans Foundation here in Dayton, and we're always looking for ways of building on that work, making sure that Hennepin County can be a good partner in that work of connecting veterans to services. Kind of related to that, last year I convened several mental health roundtables, one of them being a Veterans Mental Health Summit, where we were able to bring together veterans communities, mental health services, the county, the state, the VA, all in one room and talk about the need that veterans are facing and some of the crises that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, with veterans committing suicide at a very high rate. Making sure that they have access to services is one of the areas that I feel like Hennepin County can be a big partner in that. That was very well attended. We met at Magnus, and we had partners from across the state showing up and showing support. I also convened several other mental health roundtables geared primarily at students and student-based mental health. I convened parents of students who have had lived experience, teachers and administrators, mental health professionals, to make sure that we had kind of the broad range of voices present, as well as first responders, because very often our first responders are the ones who are dealing with those people who are in a mental health crisis on the front line. And so making sure that we have all those voices at the table was really important to me to hear from each of them separately, and then we convened a town hall that was pretty well attended. I'm looking forward to continuing that work, so if there's ways that Hennepin County as the safety net can be of service and do a better job of connecting people to the help they need when they need it, I want to be an advocate for that. Another fun thing that Hennepin County gets to do on a regular basis, in fact we just talked about this today in our committee meetings, is the youth sports grant funding. District 7 has been traditionally pretty well represented in this, and I think will continue to be well represented. We have the City of Dayton received some funding last year through this program, and we'll continue to evaluate. This is a year-over-year thing, so facility grants are available, equipment grants are available. There's also a new program that we're going to be kicking off here soon with Kaboom, which is a organization that builds play areas within the community, not playgrounds, but communities that are livable and playable, so that people and kids can have more engagement in their own community without having a specific spot that they have to go to. So we're gonna try some things out that can help hopefully build some better community focused areas that can be available across Hennepin County and not specifically just focused in one area. So excited about that. That was an initiative led by one of my colleagues, Commissioner Lundy. So some of the things that we've worked on, I touched on a little bit here, our youth sports grant equipment that is specific to Dayton. We have our youth sports grant funding. We have our home investment partnerships for the Balsam 2 living, and our Healthy Tree Canopy grant, which has been, I think, the more we can talk about some of these achievements, the better we'll all be, and it'll be we can keep building on those. Last year, we did, Hennepin County approved a 3.5% levy increase over the prior year. Now, in September, when we approved our max levy, we had approved a 4.5% increase to allow commissioner amendments and to allow for other programs. We were able to scale that back to the 3.5% to try to make sure that we were keeping under what inflation was, the inflation pressures were pushing on all of us. We're still committed to meeting all of our infrastructure needs, our maintenance needs, staffing needs that keep coming at us, and we'll continue to do that in partnership with all of our cities. So with that, I appreciate the time. I'm trying to be cognizant. I think last year I stood up here for a lot longer. So if there's any questions.
81.
So I understand we had, there was a meeting with staff and the communities who live, or who are on 81 and who are going to be impacted by work on 81. I want to make sure that your voice is heard in any of those discussions, and we'll continue to have that. I understand some other voices might have been heard louder in their initial meeting, and I've talked to our public works staff to make sure that we have more concrete and individual conversations with each of the cities, separate on how that can be worked on.
So, my understanding, I don't know what was conveyed to you, but it sounded like there was confusion as to what the real agenda was. I think our focus is traffic.
Yep.
It isn't, what we're doing alongside the road, it's traffic.
Well, I can say from the county's perspective, what happens alongside of the road is going to impact traffic.
Yep.
And that's what we want to try to make sure that we are taking a holistic view along the entire corridor. So planning decisions that are happening in Rogers or Maple Grove that have an impact on the city of Dayton, or the decisions you're making that might have an impact on the neighboring communities. If we can have a discussion that involves all of the partners, the key players, on what's being planned and what's being put out there, and the timing of some of those things, we can better coordinate from a county perspective how to meet those needs in a timely manner. I think a lot of the concerns that I've heard since taking office and before was things are happening, developments happening along county roadways, and it changes the needs of what's happening along those roadways. And then, the road isn't scheduled for repair or replacement until 15 years out. I want to make sure that we have a better view of what's coming down the pipe so that we can hopefully put those changes and improvements in a work plan earlier so that we're not faced with a, this 400 new homes came up along this. What are we going to do about the traffic? That type of thing.
And right now, I think in some areas we're actually, kind of the inverse is we're worried the county is not going to step up, and so we're actually putting the brakes on some stuff.
Yep.
So.
And because of the length of how long it takes these projects to get off the ground and find funding for them, the county is rarely the sole funder of any project.
Sure.
And so, trying to find the federal partners, the state partners, and the money to do the work is a big part of that. And I know we had a conversation last year about how CIP projects get on the county list, largely driven by the age of the roadway and the condition of the roadway. So if it's not deteriorating or not old enough, it's almost automatically not considered for a big improvement. However, some of those projects, like a mill and overlay that is going to extend the life of it, I want to take those opportunities to make safety improvements. It may not add capacity to it, but if we can change the design to make traffic flow better, we can take some of these low-cost improvements and do those better.
The mayor hit on 81. Dayton Road's a big issue.
Yep.
I've lived in Dayton my entire life on and off. There are parts of Dayton Road that have been bad for 30 plus years and have never been touched and are now deteriorating to the point that we swerve around them. And there was an underpass that was put underneath Dayton Road for a walkway, which was great. The road on top of it is like worse than the old white roller coaster at Valley Fair, and it needs, like, we just did that and it's not up to par. And I can tell you, as someone who talked to a lot of citizens in the past 6 months, they're upset about it. Like, the roads are in bad condition, and they have been, some of the spots have been for decades.
Yep.
So I'm not sure, I know it's important, we gotta get on this, it's gonna take 10 more plus years to get done. We can't wait 10 more plus years for some of these things that need assistance yesterday.
Yep. And I think that road might be on our, on a near sooner plan. So I can get the details of when the specific plans or the roads in Dayton are going to be addressed.
I think that'd be really helpful. We get asked a lot, both for intersection safety and just the quality of the roads.
Yep.
And I'm more than happy to take yourself or anyone else that doesn't know what we're talking about on a quick drive, because I can show you how bad the intersections are and the spots of the roads that have been bad for 30 years.
Yep.
That one never should have been signed off where that underpass
No,
was.
it's horrible. We had a business owner say that he goes over, and if he goes full speed, the bolted-in racks in the back of his work van fall off. He's had to replace them twice. If he's, yep, it's
Yeah, when I
it's-
take
it is
my
a-
horse trail across there, I hit the brakes. And it's amazing how you kind of, you train yourself to come up to see certain areas and you know you got to hit the brakes and yeah.
It's like when you go west on Dayton Road past North Diamond Lake there on the right-hand side, that whole side of the road is basically almost into dirt now, and that's been conditioned that way to drive.
So, yeah,
Well,
road
and
issues.
just to layer
Road
on
issues
to
are a
that
lot of
same
things, yep.
point that, our traffic has increased faster than predicted. And so the life of these roads, I think, has got to be reassessed. If they expected 15 years out of it, you're not going to get 10.
Yep.
And so I hope that comes into play in the discussion as well.
Yep, and I can tell you that our Public Works goes around and does an assessment of the roadway for drivability assessment. I think every 2 years, and it's about due. So,
I'll take them for a ride. Send them down. We'll arrange a date. Let's jump in the car and go for a ride. I can show them.
sounds great. I'll pass it along.
Please.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right.
Travis,
thank-
did you have any questions?
Oh, I forgot about Travis.
Thanks. You guys, the conversation was great. I just wanted to hit on 81 as well, but you guys did that very well. And yeah, Dayton River Road was going to be, if nobody was going to bring it up, that was going to be one of the things I was going to bring up as well, that we need to take a look at that sooner rather than later as well. So,
Yeah,
but other than
I
that,
think-
just the intersections on Pineview, North Diamond Lake Road, those seem to be hot intersections still. But yeah, if we're going to end up taking a look at it, Kevin, I appreciate what the Public Works Department will do in regards to helping us take care of some of those issues.
You,
Fernbrook's another one. We have some really bad intersections on Fernbrook that need help, like bad.
You had mentioned that you thought the River Road was on for something. I think, I vaguely remember something up towards Pineview. Does that ring a bell? Or so we do have some areas that are hotspots.
Yep.
And I think there are hotspots on your app where North Diamond hits. That's a nasty one.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a few that are. It's not a capacity issue. It's a danger. They're dangerous intersections.
I think that's a big part of it. It's, I think a lot of these projects end up looking like, or they get presented as capacity initially. And I've been trying to say, well, we also need to look at the safety improvements. And there's a whole lot of money floating around right now for different buckets. And safety is one that we're certainly going to be pushing on from the county and trying to find out how much additional money is available for safety improvements, and then seeing how deep the list we can get into it. So,
Can I ask a non-road related question? So you mentioned you did a lot of work for the veterans and mental health,
Yep.
which I think is fantastic. I think one thing that we think about here in the city is for our first responders and the mental health options that they have if they need to reach out to somebody or to talk to somebody. What kind of programs and grants does the county have available to us to help them out?
So I will say that recently, and this is a nationwide thing, so it's not specifically the county, but anybody who's experiencing a mental health crisis, there's a 3-digit number, 988, that is now available to, if anybody is experiencing a mental health crisis, they can call or text 988, and there will be somebody that can respond and help get them resources they need. We are continually trying to partner with our police and our first responders with our embedded social worker program to try to make sure that while it's not specifically for the officers, it helps relieve some of the burdens that they're facing and some of the challenges. I think we just approved a joint embedded social worker with Dayton, Rogers, and Champlin, if I'm not mistaken. And the hope is that as that program pays dividends and relieves some of the pressure, that we can add more resources to it and get more assistance to our first responders. So something that the county is always trying to look forward.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the time and the good questions. So.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Say hi to Rogers for us.
Okay, we'll shoot back to consent. I need a motion and a second.
I can motion.
Second.
Okay, Matt and Travis.
Travis said it's, yep.
Any discussion on the consent?
I had
I think we'll talk about E, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Actually, my first question is on B, the usual payment of claims, right? And there's one I'm just curious about. There's a $16,500 charge for Integra Realty Services for appraisal. And was this related to that whole
The sign.
billboard
deal.
business, that property and all
Yep,
of
that's
that?
correct.
So it took them a long time to send a bill for that.
So they originally sent it to our attorneys, and our attorneys held on to it for a couple months and forgot about it. And then they sent me an email 2 weeks ago and said, hey, this needs to get paid. It was due like 6 months ago. So
So it's past the first of the year, we closed the books.
unfortunately, that's not how that works. So
Right.
no, it just gets back. It is a one-time deal, yep.
Where's that at? Is
Done.
it still?
No.
Oh, it is
All
done?
done. Yep.
It was done as how we thought it would be?
Yep.
done? Okay.
It was settled back when we had the discussion, I don't even know.
Yeah, I know
6-7 months ago.
he thought it would be,
Yep.
didn't know.
Correct, yep, everything's been good to go and settled up and we're.
We spent 16 grand even though we knew what the number was going to be.
That was done prior to, so that
Oh,
was
that was
basically
the-
done. That was that was done to basically counter what they
Yeah, right.
had done. So this was probably done maybe even a year ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
All right.
Okay. And my other question related to the Zachary Lane becoming a state aid road, and I guess Jason's not here tonight, so I don't.
Yeah, Marty
You know,
has the
Marty,
information.
you know, the way I read it anyway, that we sort of made this deal a long time ago that we would assume responsibility for that road. But I don't know anything about what does state aid do for us. Do we get anything for it? or-
Yeah, state aid, this is basically assigning that road as a state aid status, and it basically gives the city more dollars from MSA funding. So it's just a straight funding opportunity.
Does it, well, I suppose it's hard to predict or calculate what it costs you to maintain a half a mile of road, but
Yeah, but the MSA money won't just be needed for that area. We can use it on any roads in the city.
And do you,
Oh.
so we borrowed heavily against that for Pine View.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Yeah, we are at this year is year 4 of 5. So you can pre-borrow, basically request 5 years of allotments in advance in order to pay for improvements, which we did for Pine View.
But we borrowed a set amount against that.
1.25, I think.
Nope, more than that. It was
It was
1.9.
Yeah, I was going to say it was almost 2.
Yep, 1.9.
That
And
road cost
we
us.
for 2023, our allotment was $351,000. for 2023 this
So
year.
what we borrowed at the time was 5 years' worth, but that number has since grown, correct? I mean, the allocations.
Correct.
So I would assume that then, since we're at year 4, we must about be at the
Yep,
break-even
correct.
point.
Yeah, so they, based on the projection, I'm assuming this was done back when the allotment was done, there was projections of how much more we would get based on additional roadways and so on and so forth, so we are pretty close. At the end of this year, we'll have $427,000 left to recoup of that 5-year allotment that we had pulled in advance, so based on their calculations they did 5 years ago, we're
Yep.
gonna be slightly short, I think, not by much. It'll
You mean
basically
they
take up-
borrowed against what the predicted number was?
Yes,
I
correct.
don't remember that, and I would have been very not happy with that.
So it's based on a predicted number, because it's gone up, like
No, you know
2022
we get
was
up, but-
313,000,
Alright.
and then
That's probably a
2023
detail that was not included.
that,
It's just some of that stuff, there's so
350,000.
much stuff, so many, all right.
we have like $427,000
So
left.
we-
Once we have that paid off, basically, or paid our allotments, then we can either do another large project of that and do 5 years of allotments in the future, or we can just bank up the dollars. One thing that is nice about that is if you spend it, you get more money. So, yeah, so if you spend MSA dollars really fast or borrow against them, they will give you additional dollars to spend. I know it's really odd for in purposes, but that's how MSA works, which is really weird, but yeah.
That's why you guys work the way you do.
If we work harder, we get more money. That's the idea, Scott. That's the idea.
Okay. Sorry.
Faster you get more money.
Take us off track there, but go ahead.
That's all I had.
Okay, anybody else got anything other than item E? Okay, so item E, I think you wanted to have some discussion.
Yep,
on
I'll have
where
that
we
during
go.
staff update if we can.
Oh, that's fine.
Which is great.
Okay, any other comments on consent? We've had a motion, second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Travis, I heard try. Okay, all those against, say no. Motion carries unanimously. Open forum. Do we have anybody here for open forum? Do we have anybody online for open forum?
If you'd like to speak in open forum, please use the raise your hand function. I'm not seeing any.
Okay, let's jump to staff consultant council updates. Zach?
Yes, so I only have one update tonight. Mayor and council, it is regarding item E. We did have the resignation of Ed Corton, which was our proposed city planner. And so now we need to move forward with how do we basically build our community development department back up from ground zero. Staff has gotten together and basically have come up with an idea that likely a city planner would be the first option, only because we need the work done. Hiring a community development director position may be the right option if you're looking at how the hierarchy works, of that'd be the boss basically, and you hire the 2 people underneath them. However, not all community development directors want to do actual like nitty-gritty building permit review processes, transportation plan amendments, stuff like that, that are more nitty-gritty actual work done versus more bigger picture. So city staff has suggested that we hire a city planner, but we're looking for direction of what should we hire next, because we need to hire somebody in the
Somebody to
planning
do the work. That
Correct.
would be my choice right up front, would be go after a planner, assistant planner, and leave the director alone for now. We need a planner.
We need just people doing work, as in getting stuff done out the door.
If we're gonna go for the planner and assistant planner before the director piece, should we just post for both of them now? I mean,
I would.
because worst case scenario, we get 2 good planners and we offer the other good planner the ability to be the assistant. If they say yes, we win.
That's what we talked a
Yeah.
little bit about that when we
We tried to hire the associate planner when we had him. When we went to hire an associate planner prior to our current city planner leaving, and then we said if we got a good candidate out of that, maybe we can hire them as the
Yeah.
planner. And we did not get a good candidate out of that, based on experience and real life experience. But
Remember how many candidates you had that applied for those jobs?
For the planner or the associate planner one?
For
I thought that was
he
they were
the
both
only
done
one?
at the same
Yes.
time, and I was just curious how many you got
I
out of
thought the
each pool.
associate, you had like 4 or 5.
Yeah, associate planner, we had probably, I bet you we had 10, I bet you we had
9?
8 or 9.
Yeah.
A lot of them were not going to graduate until May, so that was the hindrance of they
Okay.
didn't have a degree yet, so they couldn't actually start. That might not be a hindrance anymore at this point, because already in March, we're
Yep.
talking 3-4 weeks, and then the start date, that might not be a hindrance anymore, so maybe those people that did apply, they would reapply again, and we could interview them at that point, but without having a city planner in position, it's hard for us to grow that position, because, you know, paying Landform is great, it's just, I'd rather pay the city planner to do the
Right,
training.
right, yeah, I'd be
Understandably
okay
so.
with. Go ahead, Travis.
No, I just said understandably so.
Yeah, I'd be okay with coming up with posting for both assistant and, or what's it, associate planner
Associate
and
planner
planner?
is totally, yeah, title.
I think
And
so.
The only reason it's associate planner, so you can develop them to be able to grow.
Yeah,
within the
they're
community.
fresh out of school.
Correct, you got it.
I think, Zach, you shared some good feedback that we had gotten when you and I talked
Yes.
from Ed, that
Yep.
part of the reason we didn't get so many applicants last time is because we only posted for 2 weeks.
That is correct.
Which is a signal that you already have someone internally that wants it, so we
That's what
should
he
post it
mentioned,
for
yes.
4 this time.
3 or 4 weeks. So that comment came back from Ed was, he applied for the job because he was looking to move.
Yeah.
However, he wouldn't have normally applied because 2 weeks signals that you already have a candidate in mind. You're
For an
basically just-
internal candidate.
Yeah, internal candidate. You're just basically going through
through
the
the
process.
hoops, through
Going
the
through the
check
hoops to
marks.
get through the process.
But,
So,
okay,
so we could,
except we weren't, but
exactly. We were just trying
We
to
were
hire
trying to
some.
work fast.
We were trying to get through things.
I'm okay with leaving it open 4 weeks. My concern would be is if we do get some good candidates, although 2 weeks is not a big deal, I guess. 2 extra weeks.
We could split it into 3 too, if you feel better with that. I don't have a preference, I just.
3 weeks was what he suggested. 3 weeks
Yeah.
was fine. He said just something longer than 2 weeks shows that you don't have an internal candidate, which we do not.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was just good insight, I figured.
Yep. Do we have the option of just leaving it open? Is that a legal problem or?
We could say open till filled. I don't know, to me personally, it feels like we're just kind of going through the steps of, you just apply whenever you want to, and there's no.
Oh, I
real-
see.
No, you
Right.
gotta have a
That
cutoff
becomes a
date, I
full-time
think.
job of
Yeah.
just accepting applications and.
Yeah, but if we get to 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, whatever we
We got-
decided, we
yeah.
got nothing.
We can, I
Then
think,
what?
I think we can close it early, but I'm not sure. What we could do is have checkpoints too of
Yeah.
open till filled, but
Whenever-
check in at 3 weeks to see if we have candidates or
We
whatever.
gotta get this filled, however we
Okay.
think makes sense. I'm okay with 3 or 4
Cool. Sounds good. We'll do that.
So
for both.
Yes.
Everybody's
I'm gonna-
okay with that?
Yep.
I'm gonna go along with this, but I did want to say that ideally I would have moved that we hire the director position first and
Sure.
have that person build their team, but I know we need bodies and we need people to do the work, so.
That's that's the struggle. That's why I wanted to have the conversation tonight, because it's what do you have? You hire the boss first, and then they hire the people underneath them. But at the same point, we need somebody to do stuff, and typically the boss wants to look high level and visions and goals and stuff, and not actually do physical work of the day-to-day stuff that they may not have done in years. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to derail this.
Okay.
I just say that ideally I would have done it
Sure.
differently.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I got.
Amy?
Does Landform carry an applicant pool of people that are interested at all?
Not that they're willing to share.
Okay. Worth a shot.
I can ask. I would be
Okay.
happy to ask.
Perfect, thank you.
So speaking of hiring, without mentioning any names or talking specifics, I am coming up with some struggles of scheduling. So maybe we can have a quick conversation of what you want to do if having absolutely everyone on the hiring committee, because it's not working out that way. We're missing 1 to 2 people for a schedule conflict.
So are you trying to set up so that all the interviewers are there at one time? In other words, are we, okay, you're not.
No, I'm trying to set it up so everyone on the hiring committee can be there during the interview. It doesn't have to be, there's a day conflict.
The interviewers, not the interviewees, he's asking.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're trying to get all the committee together at one time and do the interview versus doing 2
Yes.
separate interviews with
Yes.
half of the committee and the other half of the committee.
Correct.
Oh,
Correct.
This person, which is what you were asking, I think.
yeah,
right?
I mean, we can maybe worry about that. we typically don't care as long as we have individuals, where I work anyways. If you got 5 people that have to do the interview, if 2 of them have to do it now and 2 do it later, that works. But I'm okay with that if that's an option. I don't think we all need to be there.
Okay.
To be honest, I almost think it provides a better interview when you separate them out, but I don't have that much of a preference either way. I don't know if you guys care.
Well, I think I responded to your last email, so it's the following week that I have the conflict.
Yeah.
And, I'm okay with not being there for that one. I mean, if we've got the rest of the group, I don't know if there was other conflicts with that.
We'd also be missing Travis.
Yep, I was the other conflict as well, and I told you same thing as I'm
Yep.
okay not being there for that one
You
as
both
well.
responded with like, go ahead and go and conduct it. I don't know if the rest of the group is fine if 2 of you are missing for just that one, or if we set it up on a different date after a
Well,
discussion.
is it the one that is remote, so they would have to zoom in if they didn't make it?
Possibly.
Is that, okay. So weren't they saying that they can only be there for the 9th and the 10th, I think, and then it would have to be a Zoom otherwise?
Correct.
Okay.
So I guess, if the other 2 council members can't make it, are you okay with just us doing it? I mean, I'm okay with it. If they're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
I think I'm okay with it.
Okay. So we just move forward with the 10th then, for that particular one?
I think so.
Any major concerns from the rest of the hiring council on that?
No concerns from me.
All right.
I'm
I will
okay.
proceed with the 10th.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it, Amy?
That's all I had tonight.
Marty?
Mayor and Council, just a couple of updates. Gravel roads, staff is doing the best that we can to maintain those. We've used a grader a couple of times out there to try and fill in potholes and reshape wherever we can. Tonight they're pretty slimy. I was just out driving around them. With the rain that we've been getting, I think we've had 4 rain events in February up to now. It's making it pretty difficult to keep them together. And the fact that there's minimal frost in the ground, we haven't got a base underneath there that's supporting anything. So
Is the base there now? Is the base going to be what's going to be under the pavement eventually, or is
yeah,
yes.
on West Front
Okay.
Chat. I'm talking
But
about
it's
frost.
not-
I'm talking about frost base more than anything. Yeah, but that base over there is the subgrade for the road, so there will be some tolerance in and stuff to do when they come back in the spring for
But
that.
it's not what you'd put on a gravel road, right?
No, not
So,
specifically.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think that we
So
would
it's a
have
mess.
some. Yeah, we would have something a little bit more coarse than that, but yeah. So that's even Zanzibar's pretty slimy in spots as well. So we'll keep working on it and do the best we can with what we got. We've also been receiving a number of calls about mailboxes being hit by the snowplow. When we get those calls, I generally go out and do inspections, and the majority of them, not from the snowplow impacting the mailbox. It's the heavy weight of the snow that's just taking the mailbox off the post. In those instances, if the snowplow doesn't contact the post, we don't replace the mailbox. It's only if we do contact the mailbox itself or the post that we will replace them, because we can't control the weight of the snow or that kind of stuff.
How many calls do you get, quantity-wise? Talking like 3 or 20?
Over the season, we're probably getting somewhere up towards 20, and some of them were legitimate. And we will put out a temporary mailbox for those people, and even some of the ones where it's not our fault, we've been loaning out temporary mailboxes to help those people get through to the spring where they can make their repairs. So that's kind of the process that we go through with those.
What's the average mailbox repair cost?
It can go from anywhere from $20 to $200. I had an invoice from one who had a very specific mailbox and specific wood and that kind of thing that we ended up paying the invoice for.
Yeah, torn on that one, because we are the ones that threw the snow.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's what I was going to.
It-
I don't know.
Even at 200, it got 20 of them is only $4,000.
Yeah,
It's
it
not
seems
that
like-
big a deal.
Is it-
And they're not all going to be that.
Yeah.
More of them that are going to be $30 than 200.
Yeah, we aren't covering the county roads.
No.
Right? Just the city roads.
Just city roads.
I don't know. We've had a lot of snow this year, and it's been heavy snow.
Yeah.
I'd be.
And generally, this year is why I'm bringing it up is
Yeah.
we've had a lot more this year than we generally
Yeah.
regularly do. I mean, we would have a handful through the whole season, but this year it just seems that there's more because I mean, the snowbanks are high, the posts are rigid, there's no flex in the post, so the mailbox is taking the hit.
And Marty, is a lot of that happening on the initial plow, or you have been hitting the ditches really good? I mean,
Yeah.
really opening them up.
Yeah,
Is that when it's being caused, or
it's not.
it's
It's
that
not.
first 5-6 inches coming off the road?
Yeah, it's not the initial plow; it's the subsequent plows. You know, when we get the bigger snowfalls, that's where we're getting it. You know, and with the wet, heavy snow, when you're getting the rain before it, that's got a lot of weight coming off the plow. I mean, the guys aren't doing 50 miles an hour down the road; they're just doing 20 miles an hour because you turn
I
the
think
plow around.
it's one of these deals where you guys are doing your job. Unfortunately, a side effect of that is somebody gets whacked, and I kind of.
And we've got no way of controlling that.
No.
No one's blaming the public works.
No,
Just to be
I'm-
clear, I think we're all on the
No.
same page with that. I think the question is do we want to make an exception this year to cover it and put a cap on?
I think, I
if,
think-
if you want a fancy one, that's fine. We're still only going to cover up to X amount of cost.
50
So a lot of communities set up a mailbox replacement policy, which is up to a certain dollar amount, whether that's $50 or $75 or whatever we want to set it up to. The reason being is that what will happen is a lot of people will say that they want the $200 mailbox because that one looks the prettiest,
Right.
even though beforehand they had a simple,
Yeah.
$14.99
mailbox.
Menards.
Correct, exactly. So it's always up to a certain amount that we will replace. And typically we just do that up to amount and just say, here's a check and you replace what you need to. But
And so all it takes is somebody to bring a complaint and then like a picture, or we
Yep.
send somebody out
You
there.
got it, yep.
I think I'd be okay
Yep.
with that.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of money.
It's very typical for cities to have mailbox replacement policies. It's not like it's crazy, but
Are you talking about just making an exception for this year or as a policy going forward?
I'd be okay with it as a policy going
I
forward.
think so.
Well, and retroactive for this year too.
If we can fund it, I mean,
Yeah,
it
I'm
shouldn't
okay
be a
with
lot of money, but
it depends because if it's going to be everybody, then they're going to say my mailbox got tweaked and now it's.
yeah.
But it's got to be there's got to be a certain threshold.
That's why I wanted
It's
the
gotta
cap.
be off the
Otherwise,
post.
everyone's going to be getting new mailboxes in the city. Yeah,
Well, a cap per mailbox.
correct.
Correct.
Yeah, because I have seen quite a few of them already down right now. It's very clear that the snow hit them and whacked them. So I think I'd be okay with that.
Are you okay to give us a number now, or do you want time to go think about a number that is the right max number to put on that?
I'd have to take a look and
I
see
think that
what.
would be good just to.
Yeah. And then obviously there's the other aspect to this. Is it the post and the mailbox or just the mailbox?
Well, if you knock off the post and the mailbox, I can think you got to replace them both. But
Well, that's generally, some of that happens
It
where
does.
it's both. So then that's going to be a different cost to just a mailbox. So you want me to supply a couple of costs that way?
Yeah, if you can just give us what you think the recommended number
Why
should
don't we
be
just
next.
max it out at $100 or
That's what,
something?
yeah, that's, like I said, a lot of communities either do 50, 75, $100, whatever.
I'm
it
okay
is.
with that.
Yeah, let's just max it out and just say $100.
Sure.
And
You're
then there's
going
got
to
to
look
be,
at them anyway. I mean, somebody
Yeah.
calls and you
Yeah.
go out and take a look, so you've got a pretty good idea how it occurred. And
Their truck's got a
Or
big
what
dent
the-
in the front of it that matches the silhouette.
No, Matt, it's just the plow, not the truck itself.
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, we could bring back something,
yeah,
That'd be great.
cool,
so
okay.
you-
I just,
an estimate or a policy for us to?
policy.
Yeah, okay.
And that will have an estimate from Marty about costs that he's paid for this year,
Yeah.
what the estimate, normal cost is and so on and so forth. But that'll have all.
And we should just add that to our snowplow policy as well.
Cool.
Change that in there.
Sounds good.
yeah.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And by the way, you guys did an excellent job.
Thank you. I've got to commend my guys. They've been outstanding. They've answered the call every time. And I think they've done a fantastic job. The equipment that we have now is reliable, so that really, all that stuff goes together to make it a successful event for us. So I appreciate my guys, and I appreciate your comments.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Due to my absence a couple weeks ago, I have a fair amount of things to discuss or bring up. First, I want to say thank you to all the firefighters for last week. On short notice, last Monday, I sent out an email request to the fire department in preparation for Snow Armageddon that didn't really materialize, but from my perspective. But nonetheless, we had staffing Wednesday night from 6 p.m. until Thursday at 6 p.m. To take care of any calls that may transpire during that time. So it was a success from that perspective, as well as kind of gave us an understanding from an emergency management planning perspective if we have anything of that in the future.
Did they get a lot of work done, a lot of maintenance done then?
They did get a fair amount. They got some training done as well. I'm happy to say that we only had one call during that time. Of course, if we didn't have standby, we probably would have been the other way. But here nor there. We are set to set out 16 sets of turnout gear, something that has not been done by this organization that I can tell by records, to emergency technical decon for cleaning of our turnout gear. This is an initiative of mine for firefighter safety. We send it out once a year. It's an NFPA standard. The turnout gear will be cleaned, will be actually fundamentally dry cleaned, repaired, and inspected as it's supposed to be annually. So those sets are scheduled to go out here later this week.
So Chief, that hasn't been being done, but it's supposed to be done annually?
Yes, that hasn't been done in the past, is my understanding. So yes, it's about, I've scheduled about $200 per set for repairs. That particular, our turnout gear as it relates for personal protective equipment, our turnout coat specifically, as well as our pants, they need to be pressure tested at 1 psi for the vapor barrier. That vapor barrier is probably the most important part of the turnout gear to make sure that we don't have that heat transfer. So that is being done here soon. Give an update on our new recruits. They completed EMT last week. Unfortunately, due to the snow, the college closed, so they weren't able to do any psychomotor skills for their EMT testing. That will be coming up, I believe, on Saturday. So we did, during that process, yesterday one of the recruits came in and he needed to resign. And that is not uncommon. You'll see that on the next consent agenda, where he came in and he just wasn't able to manage it with his 3 kids and everything else that was going on. So we have 7 of the 8. So they started hazmat last night. They'll continue to Fire 1, Fire 2, and that will complete probably sometime the end of June.
So before you were here, I spent some time talking to the interim chief, and he had mentioned that like something like 50% of cadets don't make it from start to like full-fledged pinned officer. Is that correct?
Yeah, often we find that we end up losing about 50% of those that we take on through those initial stages. They assume that they can take on the roles, but then they quickly realize that the time demands are pretty extensive.
Thank you.
Today, I had the opportunity to go visit down at Senator Hoffman's office. Visited with Senator Hoffman as it relates to private service areas and our EMS service that we have from North Memorial. A little history on PSAs. We are 1 of 2 states in the country that have private service areas. So basically, North Memorial, Alina, Hennepin County, HCMC, they all own their private service areas. The State Fire Chiefs Association, along with others, are trying to gain the attention of the state legislature to at least give some local control to cities, no different than recycling or stuff of that nature. This is coming up because of the significant delays that we're starting to see in EMS in their delayed response. And that's, again, like everyone else, is the inability to staff. North Memorial just got notified recently that they're going from 2 paramedics to a paramedic EMT. So that will drive, more than likely, the need for a firefighter, if it's a significant call, to ride with the paramedic down to North Memorial to help with CPR or whatever it happens to be in the back of the rig. So we're not necessarily wanting to take over. I've stated it before, and I'll state it again, I have no desire to be in the ambulance business when you're getting 30 cents on the dollar from a return on that. But I think we should have the ability, and you as the elected officials to service the constituents should have the opportunity to weigh in on if we're providing good quality service to the community or not from that. Because at the end of the day, myself and the police chief will be asked about why was the delay, or you might hear that from your constituents. So it was a good conversation with Senator Hoffman. Looks like he might bring that bill forward with his Republican counterpart. And then lastly, I wanted to close the loop on the conversation that Councilman Trost had brought up last meeting when I wasn't here. I appreciate the conversation. Radios, a little bit of history. I started on June 21st, and we had my first thing that I needed to complete by 6/28 was the capital improvement plan. During that time, I had about 5 days to figure out what that was. So I didn't understand at that time that our radios, the way we purchase our radios, we don't buy them under our capital improvement plan. That's typically how it's been done in the past at other agencies that I've worked at. So we buy them in one lump sum. Here, we lease them on a monthly basis over 84 months. And of course, I didn't understand that until we got more into operational budget and then the count of radios that we needed. So since then, I've had the ability to do an inventory on the organization, what our needs are, and that was a good conversation that I had with Councilman Trost. So with that being said, I have a good quote or good numbers for council. If we're to increase our radio pool so that every truck would have what I'm looking for, additional 10 radios, from an operations budget, if we were to go that way, be an increase in my operations budget of $11,668.56 per year. That includes the $26.99 per radio that the radio service board charges, and then the radios themselves are $70.25 per radio, or the outright cost for those would be $59,038.56. For a total, if you looked at it, for the 84 months, or total cost with the radio fee, $81,679.92. So I did make that request for 3. We have 3 on the way from last year's budget for this year. They do take about a few months to get based on supply chain issues. There's always the opportunity to apply for a grant. With that grant, often I find that we're not successful with an AFG grant there's so many fire departments that are in need of radios or other equipment, not just radios specifically. It's difficult to be that competitiveness in that. However, I was successful when I was in Brooklyn Center in having the opportunity to write a grant for our exhaust capture system, diesel exhaust capture system, similar to what was put in here recently. So there is opportunities. However, my concern is, as I spoke with Councilman Trost, is I really want to see every firefighter to have that ability to communicate to the outside if they're inside the building. They fall through a floor or they get lost. I don't have that ability for them to reach out and make communication to the outside. So I appreciate the opportunity that Matt provided in that conversation. And I really want to encourage council members that haven't had the opportunity to come and talk to me about the fire department. Please let me know. I'd be happy to sit down and talk with you to better understand kind of what the needs are of the organization, along with kind of what, big picture stuff that I'm seeing, similar to Senator Hoffman's conversation. So thank you.
Dave? All right, thank you. Well,
Evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple. We signed our contract with Lexipol, which is the policy manual. We're just starting our kickoff meeting next week, so we'll be getting very busy by going through each policy and revamping them into their format, and then doing the updates and training with all the officers on it. So we'll be busy doing that the next couple of weeks. We also just did our kickoff meeting for the body-worn cameras. Yesterday they got the new server set up, so we're just working our way through that. Once it's complete, we're going to start with one as a test model just to make sure that the software is downloading correctly. We'll have one officer wear it, and then we'll start slowly incorporating into each other officer. Just got word today we are doing interviews for the embedded social worker. The plan is next week, so hopefully we get a good turnout and we can get a final decision on that and get them started here in the near future.
thanks. Scott?
All I will add is I spent a couple hours at the Capitol on Monday, and I also talked with John Hoffman. He pulled me aside, it was another issue that we were talking about originally, and then he brought up the fire safety deal. And he also asked if Dayton needed some transportation help, so we have all kinds of needs there. So if you want to give me a list, I'm going back down there on Thursday for about 4 hours.
Sure. I'd be happy to. I did call Senator Hoffman last week, and I have yet to hit a recall back. So maybe he's just screening my call. I'm not sure.
I spent a lot of time with him at Heritage Days talking for probably 45 minutes to an hour. And
let's get him to work with staff.
He's
going to return staff's phone calls.
We'll be in touch.
At any rate,
we'll be in touch.
They're busy spending money, so we should get in line.
Yeah.
That's what I asked.
Okay, I got nothing. Dave?
Nothing new for me. I believe it's next week or the 9th anyway, that I'll be going to the League of Minnesota Cities Day on the Hill, and so I'll see Senator Hoffman and Danny Nadeau as well. I've got appointments with both of them during the course of that day, so I want to work on that list too.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's all I have.
I have a 10 o'clock with him on Thursday. Danny.
No surprise. I have a few things to talk about. I'm sure no one's surprised. But first, I want to say thank you to the Public Works team for working through the Snowmageddon that half came. You guys put in a lot of hours for that. Special thank you to the fire department for working the extra hours, staying overnight in City Hall and in House 1. I know those aren't necessarily the most comfortable beds in the world to sleep on that we have, so thank you for putting that time in. And then thank you as well to our police team for being out and about and making sure everyone's taken care of. I got lots of compliments on the roads, Marty, and how many times everyone was going by. A lot of citizens in the neighborhood were really impressed, so thank you very much for that. I want to give a special thank you to the fire and police department. So we had a family member at our house last week that had a diabetic reaction, so we had to call 911. It was nice to see familiar faces come in and show up to help with that. I will say that our team showed up about 10 to 15 minutes before the paramedic showed up. And fortunately, because they weren't able to draw the blood sugar test until the paramedics got there, that's 10 to 15 minutes. Everything worked out well, and we thank everyone that showed up and was kind enough to come into our house and make everyone feel calm in what could be a stressful situation. Thank you for that. I do want to, and we talk a lot about why we go through EMT training and versus EMR and why we're kind of moving that way. And the goal is to allow our fire department to do more when they arrive at the scene. So I pulled some quick just information on diabetes. Approximately 10.5% of the population has diabetes, which means approximately 1,000 people that live in our city have it, which means having the ability for our teams to be able to do something as simple as test blood sugar can make a big difference in the outcome. So as we continue to move towards that, and I look forward to seeing the progression that we make with getting the approval to do more work around that. So thank you for your push on that. I went to the Parks Committee last month. I'll be going again this upcoming month, but I also spent time with Mr. Baines to try to figure out kind of what his plan is with the Parks Committee and hear more from the Parks Committee. So thank you for everyone that had me there. A lot of it is working on parks planning, planning more paths and getting connectivity, which I think is important. Working more with Teresa around recreational planning and ideas, and that's something that our general friend in the back talked about, as well as others as we were in the meeting. And I know water trails, which we're talking about tonight, is also a big opportunity for the city, and that the Parks Committee really seems excited about. So I'm excited to hear more about that again tonight. The other thing that I talked to him about, I think it'd be really helpful, not just the Parks Committee, but also the EDA and the Planning Committee, is to have the committee chair come in twice a year, once at the beginning of the year to talk about here's what we did last year, here's what's on the agenda for this year, and then one mid-year to say here's how we're doing so far, here's what we still should get done this year, and then when we look at next year, because it'll be during budget season, here's what we think could really help move the city forward. I think it helps us as a council better have an understanding of what the needs are that they're representing as the community, and it gives them an opportunity to take ownership of that piece and really drive it forward more, which I know from coming to these meetings for a while is something that is often asked for. So I think it would be helpful for us to do that going forward. And then last but not least, when we did the designations at the beginning of the year, Doug gets put on the watershed designation because he's already involved with it. So one thing he did ask if he could come in at least once a year, if not twice, to talk about what's going on with the watershed and just keep the council up to date. I assume there's no objections from the council.
He usually does.
Yeah, so Zach's going to reach out to him and get that scheduled so we can get him come in and give us an update. Sounds like it's been a while. That's all I got.
I think COVID may have put an end to some of the updates for a while.
Yeah, but he used to, yeah. So that's fine.
Yeah, I think that charters for those committees actually talk about an annual report as
Yeah.
being part of the routine.
Yeah.
So, but I don't recall us doing that actually.
I think
Okay.
it'd be good to get the chairs get back to doing that and coming in and presenting. That'd be helpful for everyone.
New business, I think, right?
You got it.
Transportation amendment update. Who's handling that? Kendra.
Yep, that's me. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Thanks for having me tonight. Kendra Lindahl with Landform, and I just wanted to check in, since we have a couple new council members, Zach and I felt like it was important to give an update on this transportation update. The transportation plan amendment was something the council went out for RFP last year and selected Landform to help you work through that. And really, you guys have studied the intersection of Fernbrook, Zachary, a lot over the years. And so our job
About 14
is
times.
not to restudy it, but to distill all of the previous studies in a way that you can see the pros and cons and make a decision for sure to make the change from what the comp plan currently shows in what I think we all call the X to a version of the H. And so, we're looking at a stronger north-south connection. The council's talked about safety concerns that we want to identify. So we met with Hennepin County on February 23rd with their staff to kind of talk about, are any of these options going to be easier or harder to get funding for, and start to talk about some county involvement in the improvements. And the person from the county said, you know what, let's regroup and let's meet again with my boss. So we have a second meeting scheduled for March 6th with the county. So it was a good start, but we didn't get a lot of direction from them, so we're going to meet with them again. And I think that'll be important to have that information. So you all know this, but for anybody watching, really there's kind of been three different alternatives for this intersection. On the left is the comp plan version, which is the X, and then two sort of modifications of a version of the H. And really, since 2008, those have really been the three options with a little bit of variation. And so we are going to bring back to you on April 11th our summary in a packet where you can look at all of those and officially provide direction on the preferred alternative. With that, then, we did a lot of work not Landform, but the city did a lot of work this summer on looking at this, and we had some public forums, got a lot of feedback. We want to do another open house on May 8th, and we're putting that in the newsletter. We're letting people know there was a lot of turnout, as I understand it, on the September event. It was my birthday, I couldn't be here, but so we want to make sure that we put it in the newsletter, let people know. Zach and I have talked about doing individual notices to affected landowners. That's quite a few folks, but it's important. It's a big change. And so that meeting, open house, we'll be able to share the council's direction, get feedback on the direction before we move ahead with formal action, which is intended to be a public hearing on April 1st at the Planning Commission, and then action with you on April 13th to make the change to the comprehensive plan.
So can I ask about that? Because
Dang it!
Doesn't April come before May?
Dang it. I don't know. I did this in the, Zach, I did this in the meeting with the county. So I'm glad I put my image here, and thank you. I am skipping June. I said this last time, but the public hearing is June 1st with council action on June 13th. Thank you, council member. I have a brain shortage on that meeting, so I apologize, and I thank you for correcting
And
that.
what is the open house to go over again?
Well, so the open house is in advance of the public hearing to tell folks, you will look at it on April 11th, and then we will have that information to share with the public on May 8th, so that people get an opportunity to hear the information, provide some feedback before we go to the public hearing on June 1st.
So we literally have done this a number of times. And I think it's time to be done. I mean, this came up in 2018 where we looked at these options. I think at that point we were so overwhelmed with the or 2019 with the interchange that it was. I think it was kind of discussed at the time that there's an issue here. We got to make a change, but we never did. We meaning that 2019 body. And then we met about a year ago over this, and we had an open house, and it just seems like it just keeps floating. And I'm not sure what we're doing.
Yeah, I think the difference now is I feel like the council has provided some general direction that you want to make the change, and so I don't know that at the last meeting, as I wasn't there, but I've watched some of the tapes and read some of the materials. I feel like previously at the last meeting, it was still a discussion about changing it. Where I think where this is a little different, Mr. Mayor, is that on April 11th, my hope is the council says, yes, we want to change the comprehensive plan from what it says to option B or C. And to present that information to the public on May 8th, which feels a little different than I think some of the meetings this summer and fall.
Can we just do the first step tonight, move everything up?
I think
we're ready to make a decision. I don't want to speak for
We're
everyone.
all
but
decided on this, I think.
I think so too. So it just seems like we just keep delaying things to get back.
But if you guys want to drag it out, then whatever.
Well, we work for you. I think the idea was wanting to give you the findings in advance of why to make the change and be able to present that in public. Because I do think that's fair. I think the council's been fairly clear that the council wants to change from the X. I will tell you, I'm not as clear listening to the meetings if it's 2 or 3, and I think the option of the meeting on the 11th would be some feedback from the county about if there's any difference in how they might fund or be involved in either of those, and our city engineer.
Okay. Yeah, so if you watch those, you know that I was, and I suspect a few others were concerned about the information that was given with regards to option 3, but
In the public
meetings. And option 2, I'm wondering when that got renamed to Reconstruct Fernbrook, because I'm not aware of any reconstruction that we had talked about. So,
Yeah, there is no reconstruction of Fernbrook.
so why is that titled
I
Reconstruct?
don't know why it would be
That-
considered.
Okay.
Yeah, that came out of the September
Now, there could be
discussion, but-
some ideas there. I think I've heard roundabouts floated, but, I mean, we can talk about those. But, yeah,
Is the it's up to you. We'll do it however you want. I think there's some value to being able to say, yep, we've looked at everything. This is the direction. Hold the public meeting in May, just to be clear that this is how we're proceeding. And the idea being, it makes the public, in theory, makes the public hearing go more smoothly in June, because it definitely affects different people. You make this change, and this was always true. Whichever option you chose in the 2030 plan impacted some people more than others, and that's always going to be true. So it feels like if we've made a decision, it makes sense to be clear to people that we've made a decision.
and we will do that, though, as part of the comp plan approval, right? We have to have a public meeting for the
Well,
comp plan.
yes, that's this. So this meeting in,
Well,
June 1st, right?
on June 1st is the public hearing to
be
adopt
ready
the
for
comp
that,
plan.
Will we? I mean, that's not just the transportation plan. That's going to be other comp plan
We have to do one for
changes.
each amendment we do. We'll have to do a public hearing for each of the
And
amendments.
do you think that any transportation changes we look at will be limited to this? Because that would surprise me. I guess I haven't really thought about it.
What you're saying is in total of our transportation plan amendments in total, we are focusing on this area.
We are, yep.
Yep, and that is, unless there's other changes that we need to be looking at, I am not aware of them besides this area of 125th or.
Well,
the
for
X
example,
area.
I think we should ponder, at least have some input into either roundabouts or some other mechanism to deal with Rush Creek, where that connects into Fernbrook, where 117. I mean, I just think there's going to be other things that we'll be looking at, not just this.
So the transportation plan amendment is for the general idea of where the roadways are going to be, not necessarily what the intersections will look like
Sure.
long-term. It is generally,
So you
where
think
do you
it's-
want the roadways to be? And
Okay.
then once we get to where the roadways have to be and what was decided by the council of what our future roadways will be, then we can have conversations about, this is an area that we have a problem with, let's talk with the county or whatever.
So that would be
Intersection improvements at that point.
an open house in lieu of the meeting to approve of the transportation portion of that comp plan.
So, yeah, so
Transportation
April
plan.
11th would be, the council makes the final decision. We have all the findings and facts and all the information that
Okay.
Kendra is gathering about why we want to do this, why we want to do that, so on and so forth, of all the pros and cons for each option, so on and so forth. Council makes a decision on April 8th of, yep, we're going to move forward with that. We have an open house to be able to have the public to understand what the change is going to be. And then we have to fulfill a public hearing and then a final approval. Likely prior to all of, right around that end of March, beginning of April timeframe, hopefully we will have our quote-unquote soft approvals from Met Council and from Hennepin County of whatever one you, if we are leaning one way, which is what we're trying to figure out tonight, is which way we are leaning as the council, so we can have those conversations between now and April 11th with the county and Met Council to say, if you'd like to go this way, this is what we're thinking as the city council. Would you have any problems with that, basically? And then if there's no problems with those on that side, the process will go much smoother after we have all of the conversations had up front.
I'd rather go to the county and say, here's what we want to do, how are you going to help us,
Right.
than say, which option do you prefer?
Right.
That seems.
That's what we
Me
need.
too.
That's what we need tonight. Is
Yeah,
some
so
general
that's the
direction.
question tonight, is the
I-
council's direction,
Yeah.
option 2 or
I have no
3?
problem saying option 2 tonight,
Yep. I don't either, but
No, I don't either.
but March, I'd rather not have a 300 or 400 page packet in March. March is a bad month.
I'm not an
I'm okay
engineer, it
with-
won't be 300 pages, it'll maybe be 8.
I'm okay with option 2 also.
talking about
I
the
think
whole
my
packet.
only question is, where's the right place for that cross street?
yes.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that would be the one piece I would say I would like input on. If
Well-
we're going to get input, like to me, that
Yeah.
would be a good one, because I have ideas where I think it makes most sense, but I don't design roads for a living. I don't know the
Well, and
topography.
in reality, where the pavement gets put down, we won't see till.
Correct, but just
Yeah.
generally, like
Yep.
where
No,
that
I get
line's
it.
going
I
to be.
agree.
Yeah,
I fully agree.
I agree.
yeah. Travis?
I totally agree with you, Matt, right there on that one. I'd just like to see where that road best aligns. I'm all for option 2. I just, again, to the same comments, just want to know if that's the best spot or if anywhere else in that stretch from 129th to where it currently is mapped out on the dotted line there, where it falls within that geographic area.
Yeah, and that's some of the stuff we'll bring back in April. Wetlands is why it is where it is, but we
Right,
can
right.
provide some more detailed information about why that is. Wetlands and then curve sightlines when it hits Zachary. But we are working with the city engineer. I said we're going to meet with the county again April 16th. I'm also trying to get a Met Council meeting scheduled for the week of the 27th. That's the soonest spring break stuff, that's the soonest we can get together
Is
to
it
just
that
talk
March
through.
27th?
Yes, March,
Okay.
the week of March
Judy,
27th.
who's our rep there?
Met Council?
Yeah.
I do not know
Judy.
the-
Well, Judy is your council rep. This is with staff, so
Oh,
with Freya Thaman and the transportation folks' staff at the Met Council first, because that's the other thing. Once we go through the public hearing in June, you adopt, presumably, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but adopt option 2 for the transportation plan amendment in June. Then we have to go to the Met Council. And it's not like your 2040 comp plan amendment timeline, but it's still a timeline, 60 to 120 days. And my experience is they're sliding more on the 120-day side, but we want to meet with staff to try to expedite it so that we can
Do
get
they
that
also
done.
have the option of rejecting it to bump it out, or do they have to have a very good rejection reason?
So the Met Council's job, I always like to say, they don't approve your comprehensive plan or your comprehensive plan amendments. Their job is to see if it is consistent with the regional plan. And so my opinion is they do not have the ability to reject our choice on this road alignment. That doesn't mean they won't have questions and they won't push back, but it is our plan, your plan as the city of Dayton. So that isn't the concern. It's just sometimes there's some discussion and, some things like what does this do to sewer or water plans, which is really nothing at this point. We're not proposing with this particular task to do the land use plan. We know we have to do some updates to that after this.
Right.
And that will potentially have some more changes to the sewer and water plans, for example, potentially to the trail plans. But that's a different task that we're separating. And so I feel okay about them getting it through, but they're the Met Council, so sometimes you need to lay the groundwork that this is our plan and we're coming in with it. So that's our point next month.
So from a moratorium standpoint, the June date is the date that we would, per the guidance we got before, once the city says, yep, this was in Met Council, that's the date that really matters.
I would argue that the moratorium, you cannot implement your comprehensive plan amendment until the Met Council finishes their review. And so I think what we talked about with Kevin and Zach was that it's when the Met Council completes their review, because that's when you can officially implement that change.
Isn't that different than what we heard?
I think that is directly different from what Kevin had mentioned to us last time.
We
Yeah,
drilled them pretty hard
he
on
did
it.
say we could, but I guess I want to back up a little bit. If we're not doing land use yet,
We will be.
I know we will be, but will that be by June? I mean, if land use is gonna, a lot of the moratorium is where the roads are, but really it's land use.
Can we dual path these instead of waterfalling these? Can we start, knowing that we want to, can we start on the land use stuff now so that we have a kind of a rough draft already up versus waiting for this to get done and then do the next one? Can we do them in parallel versus in sequence?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that,
The idea was to do them in waterfall form. The idea was, I just didn't know exactly when does that trigger start, to start the next process, because once we have an idea of transportation, then then the next thing would be land use of going around that road. Okay, if you want the road to be here, then we need to follow land use around the road, so we don't have a commercial area way in the middle off of,
Well,
man's
and
land.
again, like I stated last time, it's just not land use there. But there are
Nope,
other
it
areas
just-
where I think
yeah,
we're
in
going to look
total.
at, so.
Land use will be in total. I don't believe a moratorium would be needed around land use, because every 10 years we would do a comp plan amendment and we would adjust land use, so we don't have a moratorium every 10 years. However, we would have general consensus or guidance around this area for the transportation and land use and all the changes we have here. If we're doing a land use amendment somewhere off and just one off piece of properties, typically those don't have a major change because there's not a lot of drive behind those unless it's for some specific purpose.
And the land use would not change the staging plan, correct?
It could if
It
you
could.
wanted to change that.
Well,
It could, yeah.
also, this is not very far along either, but all the discussion around the historic village could result in some land use
That is
changes in that area as well, when we try to bundle this all
We would-
into
yes,
one
that is
deal.
correct.
And that's, we're also looking at, I don't know how far ahead the EDA is on that, but they're also going to have some sort of open house to discuss that with the old
Yeah.
village residents.
But I think to get back to Zach's point, we're not putting a moratorium on building the village
No.
as part of this, just because the land use may change.
No,
So
my
that's the important-
point
That's a
was
different
that
issue.
we've got
A lot.
probably a broader brush to look at with the land use than we do with the
For sure.
transportation.
I agree. Yep.
So I don't know that we could do them in parallel, or complete them
Yeah.
at the same time.
Yeah, that was my understanding. So, I mean, we certainly could do this district, relook at the land use with the transportation without a big change to the schedule, but I thought you wanted to look more globally at some land use
I
things.
personally, I think we should.
I think it was some of it was focused around here, but there was also some that were just
Yep.
in total that I had
Yeah.
gotten direction from, so it was in concurrence with what
And
Kevin was saying.
it could be that if this amendment really is just simply that, then that should burn through pretty fast. So, it's,
Yeah.
the
Again,
land
is
use
there any other
that we
comments
get
you'd like to make on
bogged
Parkway? I did send some suggestions out. If you guys have any suggestions about the Parkway area, connecting the Parkway up to Zanzibar, are we looking to basically do what we need to do to make it work logistically? Would we like traffic to move faster along that way? Is there any suggestions from council on that aspect?
we should go under that pond instead of up to.
That's, we cannot do.
All right.
Some
We
of the
can talk
things
about that all you want, but that's not gonna change. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't,
Any suggestions on the Parkway? I know we focus, like I said, this is more
think so.
focused on the Fernbrook middle area of
I mean, it's still
Fernbrook, but
planned on a 45 mile an hour road, right? 40, 45, something like
I
that?
believe it was supposed to be 45 up to 117th, and then it's supposed to be 50 or 55 past that. That is what has been explained to myself. Past north of 117th.
That's-
It might not be directly
Okay.
at 117th, like, oh, it's right at this point. It's gonna
Right,
be-
no, I thought it was, okay.
it's
I
supposed
was-
to- it's just-
That's kind of what was talked about.
Yes.
Okay.
Rough 117th area, and again, it's a broad brushstroke again.
Yeah, yeah.
117th area would be 45 and less
Okay.
as you come up to the interchange, but then after that, it would be likely 50 or 55 or.
Yeah, and that's likely at 15, 20 years down. Oh, likely.
Yeah, okay.
Well, I'm just gonna,
Yeah, I know.
that's a comfortable number. It could be
Okay.
30, 40.
Yeah, and if you have other comments other than that, then.
I don't think
Yeah, otherwise, I
so.
think I have what I have, or what I need, so we'll proceed with option 2 is the preferred option. We'll come back in April. We'll have by then an update on our Met Council and county conversations to see if that has any impact on the decision. And then you can officially say, yep, with all the data, that's our plan. We'll hold the open house on May 8th, give people an opportunity to hear why you're making that change, and then move on to the June public meetings, hopefully have it teed up with the Met Council so we can move through closer to 60 rather than the full 120 days and have that done. And I will double check with Zach and Kevin and just relook at that moratorium. I believe we have a lot of discretion, but until the Met Council completes their review, you can't really implement and say that's the comp plan because they don't. You can adopt it, but unless they say it's okay, it's not official. So I think there might have been a disconnect with Kevin, and I'll just double check with him.
Please.
And so that when it comes back to Planning Commission, which is next,
It's 2 days.
2 days, yeah.
2 days.
oh, yeah, next Thursday, okay.
As in, no, like.
This calendar's not
like
helping
2
me
days.
either.
Like in 2 days, Thursday this week.
Obviously, I'm going on vacation Friday, and I obviously
And you need it?
because I have no idea
We
what
will, I will
and I
touch base
apologize for
before
that.
That's fine.
And I'll second what Matt said about if you can just get rid of 3 right away now before you go to the county, just get that off the table.
Yeah, the county, yeah,
I don't want to hear what you want to do. This is what we want help
Yep,
with.
no, that's what I mean, so that's why tonight was important for us to get a final kind of a
Yeah.
directive to get, okay,
Okay.
here's what we want to do, and then we can move forward. And that way we can eliminate the other options that we have on the table.
Yeah, it actually can just change our meeting
Yep.
with the county to, this is what we're proceeding with. How does that affect your, financial or other roles, so. So I appreciate that. I apologize for my calendar craziness, but I thank you very much, council, and we will see you in April.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item H, final water trail document and presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is, we've got to the final stage of the water trail study. I have Claire from MSA in the audience to help me, and Rain Gardner is online. Can we share her screen?
She should be able to, yeah.
Yeah. So this is just the final document. We need to get your approval for the acceptance of this study. With accepting of this study, it opens up a lot of different opportunities for funding and different kind of grant opportunities. So that's why it's very important. I'm actually waiting to start putting together a grant tomorrow if we do get the acceptance on this today. The Park Commission, we've did the same presentation to them, and they really liked it. They approved acceptance of this by the council, and they would recommend that the council accept this study. So I think that's where we're at. And Rain is going to go through some of the highlights.
We have to stop sharing our screen. So
How do I stop sharing?
it's on the
Right here?
red button, a little more to the right. Oh, there you go. There you go.
There we go.
Up here, Claire.
What is that? The other, this will stop the other screen sharing. Do we want to continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yep.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
okay.
Oh, no,
Oh,
it stopped.
nope, that didn't work.
Stop. Yep, right there.
Okay, go back to stop share. Do you want to try again, Rain?
Yeah.
I'll hit no this time.
50-50.
Okay. I'll make sure it doesn't pop up again.
Can you hear me too?
Yeah. Can
Okay.
you hear me?
We're good.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Claire Michelson. I'm a planner with MSA Professional Services. I've been working with Marty throughout this process since November when Rain and I came and paddled the Crow and Mississippi rivers. It was a little chilly, but we made it through all good. I'll let Rain give a quick introduction as well.
And hi, I'm Rain Gardner, and we've been pretty excited to walk through this project and work with the city on various steps, planning this trail in particular. It's great to be on a already recognized national water trail. So actually planning the developments for such a trail is pretty exciting, and I think we have started the ball rolling on building some great partnerships.
Yeah, so with that, I think this evening, we're just going to go over, we know the plan document was in your guys' packet, so we're just going to give a brief overview of what is in that plan and kind of then the next steps, final processes for the city and council. So the plan's broken out in 5 chapters, intro about the corridor with a lot of local regional context. You guys have done a lot of planning work in the city of Dayton, so all of those goals and policies from your other initiatives were really incorporated into this plan through inventory and analysis as well as the needs assessment, and then incorporated into the final goals, recommendations, and implementation activities. So really, Dayton, you guys are, as you know, in the heart of the river, but there's kind of this gap of access where you guys lay, other than the confluence location, which really is geared more towards motorized vehicles. And so as you can see there, the Three River Park District access at Crowhassan Park is about a 10-mile paddle to the confluence access point. And then the only other locations are on the other side of the river, which for an experienced paddler can be really difficult or I guess daunting as well to try and cross over if you get out, and then that brings the level of connectivity that was, you know, the Parks Board has been really interested in, as well as your other kind of policies with Three Rivers Park Districts and some of their proposed multimodal trails that we're hoping some of these proposed points that are shown on the yellow stars can kind of tie into, particularly the Gooden Park location. That's where the Park District has discussed that's a trailhead for that proposed Diamond Lake Regional Trail. And the city owns, obviously, the parcel right next to it. So that was a really kind of a starting point with our conversations through our partnerships and steering committee discussions with this plan, as well as the other planning projects that the city has started with LC Stevens Park. That was a primary location, as well as we'll represent that later when we talk about the concepts, but good access point for that. Oh, sorry.
So
Yeah.
there was one that, so there's, you showed the DNR landing. There's another DNR property that hasn't been included, and it's not a very large property, but I'm wondering if that should also be at least shown. Right now, if you drive by there, you can't tell that it's public property.
Is that the Overlook one?
It's on Overlook.
That's been disrepaired since I was a kid.
Well, it used to be kind of obvious it was a public access,
Yep.
and then it got cleaned up, and so you can't tell. Now you
Okay.
can't tell it's public property. It'd be nice to make that public property. I have had some people in that development say, hey, we were promised this thing way back, in the 70s or whatever, and it was taken away, and it wasn't really taken away. It's still there. They just don't. So I don't know.
I think with some of the conversations with DNR, we can mention that they're very interested in doing something with us, and there's some island accessibility there as well for the DNR, I think, as well, that we could incorporate into this trail.
Yeah, we absolutely can include that in the map and provide an updated document.
And a bridge.
A bridge?
To the island.
Yes.
To the island.
Yes.
That would be.
And you could mow your brains out there. You just big trail. It's 100 acres.
Okay.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, wait till August, you can drive across, you don't need a bridge.
That's true. It was pretty shallow when we paddled it in November. I actually think we had to get out at a point and push each other through that area because it's just the water levels vary so much throughout the seasons. Other highlights, like I had mentioned, we really wanted to incorporate existing goals that the city has already established, particularly the City Council's strategic plan for growth in the robust park and trail system, as well as enhancing connections to the natural environment. So that was a large background kind of into the needs analysis, which is chapter 2 and 3 of the plan. Throughout, we also held different stakeholder engagement activities as well as an open house, and we had a survey as well. I think a lot of really good feedback. As we know, the city has great opportunity for this connection thanks to amenities you already have and regional partners and their willingness to, through this plan, to already start working with us and have conversations and continue to build that and potentially bring in some of that recreation tourism that I think the rivers capture, as well as the kind of multimodal bike paddle loops that can be made and created within the city with not just the rivers, but also kind of the Diamond Lake and other. I know French Lake isn't super heavily utilized, but there is the DNR access there. There is a public launch, and I'm not sure if that. I think the DNR, based on our conversations, is more focused on enhancing the river and the existing launch point and amenities that they have there. But overall, we had positive feedback from residents. They all really enjoy what's currently existing and would love to see it enhanced through access to the rivers in the community. So based on all of these existing conditions and the multiple conversations we'd had with steering committees, we developed 4 recommendations. Mainly, the number 1 was to make Dayton an attractive, accessible, and safe destination for use by residents and visitors for water and land-based recreation. This goal acknowledges the opportunity, I feel like I've said a lot, to combine the water and land recreation and complete that connected multimodal destination trail park connection in the city. I can read through all of these if you'd like. I can give you a brief overview. This is page 27 of the document is where the recommendations start, but this one really stems with kind of utilizing or increasing the amenities at the DNR Confluence launch, suggested training for river safety. Hennepin County offers that. If the water trail is implemented, safety obviously was kind of the biggest concern throughout the conversations with stakeholders and residents, as well as just, like I said, continuing those partnerships with Three Rivers and National Park Service and the DNR. Goal number 2 was to improve the water quality of the rivers and lakes in Dayton. Obviously, as this trail continues to be implemented, human activity, is going to increase, and we want to ensure that as we're promoting the river and the recreation of the river, we're also fostering the natural environment of it and making sure that we're keeping that side in mind as we're promoting it and hope more people are coming in and using it. And then number 3 was to build and maintain partnerships to develop, implement, and champion improvements. This goal is really the backbone of this plan moving forward, fostering and continuing, keeping relationships, and adding more partnering with adjacent cities and communities that are also along the river, not just your regional entities, and kind of finding that champion to continue the momentum of the plan and the work we've done into implementation of some of the conceptual designs or other things that may come out through continual stakeholder engagement and conversations. And then finally, goal number 4 is to increase tourism and economic development through recreational opportunities. This, I know you guys are discussing some of your comprehensive plan amendments and future land use in consideration of recreation along the river is going to also be a really big implementation factor in some of this. To thrive the recreation-based tourism, the economic side of it too, in terms of some of the recreation businesses that may be able to come in and, like, I think, Rain, do you have any additions on the kind of business side of it with this goal?
Yeah, I mean, what we've learned with the development of recreational amenities such as this is that there are other opportunities that develop that support the overall trail. And we've seen it from sporting goods stores to renting equipment to actual rental services that can take on groups of people and doing paddling tours. We've seen a couple of restaurants actually develop because of the corridor itself, where people might stop and stay. Ultimately, it would also maybe engage the potential for a hotel or need for B&Bs or things like that to fully develop, because you turn it into a destination that has many opportunities. And I think to the point Claire had mentioned earlier with looking at your other plans and the discussions across the community, you already have a great start on land, many amenities for your recreational system, especially the trails. And so people are really looking for opportunities for pedal, paddle, circle loops and things like that, where they might be able to do that in a day and then stay overnight and do some other things in the community around the area. And we've seen the migration of people. We've seen it even internally at MSA, just the changes since 2020. And I know others are looking for these opportunities in other states as outdoor recreation increases, as people want to get outside.
Yeah. And then I think that goal for this slide essentially is everything that we've kind of already talked about. But then lastly, we have the overall public policy improvements. This one, again, this leans back on goal number 3 with the coordination with adjacent municipalities. We're recommending a river partnership be created with a champion, and some of those individual strategies that were outlined in goal 3. If other entities, I think, see this momentum and are interested, divide and conquer and create that regional trail. We have had multiple conversations with the National Park Service, and they're very interested, as they are technically the champions of the National Water Trail, the Mississippi designation, and that role has been kind of in and out in terms of a staff member, and their current person is really excited about Dayton's progression and this plan and wants to kind of utilize it as the starting point for other communities and the national trail here in the metro. So I think this this river partnership is really important, like I said, to keep that momentum. And then funding, we have funding recommendations included in the document with a matrix of different entities, what the match is, and some description of what that grant opportunity is, and then how often the kind of funding cycle is for that. So that is the kind of content of the plan, and I think we can do some questions now, or Rain was going to go over the concepts, or Marty?
Can I just add something here? I think the National Park Service is going to be a real big partner with us on this. I think I mentioned to you guys before that on April the 12th, there's a meeting downtown in St. Paul that they want us to attend. They're going to use, if you guys accept this water trail study, they're going to use this as the kickoff point, and we'll be spearheading their relaunch of the National Water Service Trail, water trail there. They're going to do branding around of what we do. It's going to be a pretty big deal. At that meeting, there's going to be opportunities to talk to other agencies, and there will be other communities attending that event, either in person or online. So I think we're getting a lot of good traction with this. I think the National Park Service is a really good thing. funding that I was talking about, that I'm trying to get the documentation together for tomorrow, is an earmark grant that the National Park Service pointed us at and said, you should go for this, and this document would be the backbone of that funding opportunity.
Was that the $100,000 one on
This is
on that
separate to
grid?
that. This is a
from
separate grant. This is a federal grant. The 100,000 and the 2080 match grant are both from National Park Services funding from their federal funds. This is a different pot to go to.
It's a big pot.
The community project one was the one that we were awarded the $4 million of the water treatment plant a few years ago. That's the same pot of money that this earmark funding.
I think there's a couple of other opportunities. There's a state one and a federal one that we would be pursuing.
Correct.
And then the national park, I thought they're the ones that did Cloquet, right?
Yeah.
So they basically improved it and handed it to us.
I think Hennepin County had a big part to play in
Did
that
they?
as well. Yeah.
Oh, so we did get something from the county.
Last time.
And Marty, when you say 80-20, that's 80-20 National Park, 20.
You know which way that is.
That's how it is, right?
No, it's 2080. So 20% of their funding, 80% city funding at the moment.
So that means they
But
don't.
it doesn't have-
That means they don't really want to do it that bad.
No, it doesn't necessarily have to be 80% of city funding. It could be from some of these other grant opportunities. So it doesn't have to be all city money. And that's why we're trying to figure out how much grant money that we can get over the next few years. Because I think logistically, the National Park Service money isn't coming online till 2024. Mm-hmm. So they don't allocate until the end of this year. So, but we understand from our contact that we have a very good chance of getting that funding. The 100,000 for sure, and the 2080 is looking pretty good. So
we have some time to get our ducks lined up.
yeah, I'm really
Okay.
excited about this thing in St. Paul. I'm reaching out to our other neighbourhoods, our neighbours around here, to get them involved and see this as a real project. I think this could be the real kick-starting of the whole project.
Is that forest that you're dealing with?
Yeah.
We set? We good?
Would you like to look at the concepts? They're on the presentation. We can, I think Marty had them printed out in the back as well.
that was Okay.
But it's just,
Yeah.
that
We can.
Rain's gonna run through those quick.
Sure.
Sure. So hopefully you can see my mouse on the screen. But so when we did the plan, ideally it was to look at a couple conceptual areas of where accessible launches could be activated within the community and how they would tie in with obviously the rest of your overall systems. And so as Claire mentioned earlier, Gooden Park was a great opportunity to really collaborate with Three Rivers Park District, because when you look at Gooden Park, as where it's located here, it's actually just slightly up the river from where the island is. And so it's challenging if somebody goes on one side of the island, mainly on the main channel, they would go right past the park and not have access. They'd have to paddle upstream to get to the park. So in the discussions that we had, Three Rivers had already started planning that this would be their trailhead to the Diamond Lake Trail. And they suggested that we work together on developing a concept that would tie the two parcels together, which I think it's turned out to be a really great concept to really maximize the space. And so if you've ever been to the site or driven by, obviously there's an upper area that's out of the floodplain, and then there's the low-lying area that's within the floodplain of the river. And so that kind of designates the two different areas of the park overall. We worked with Three Rivers on developing their site and what they needed specifically for the trailhead concept. So they have some standardized items on a kiosk, shelter with restrooms, bike racks, parking, and then that overall connection of the trails all coming to this point. This would be that underpass that would cross underneath to connect in. Within this area, we wanted to make sure that the launch would be located on their parcel, because that way paddlers coming in either side of the island would be able to access that point and be able to stop or pull out at that point, depending on where they're coming from. This particular launch, and we'll look at the next slide here, is a stepped approach. It's an accepted ADA compliant launch with steps because of the fact that we're on a varying river with varying water levels throughout the year. So as the water comes up, a user will be able to access dry ground and launch their boat on the next step that might be in the water. So they can set their boat, but get from the step above into the boat. So that really provides access. We see this kind of use across the country, actually, on river applications. Mainly, it started out west as people are trying to get down some pretty steep banks to some of the rivers out in like Colorado. Paddle. And so we've gone through a lot of research, specifically with the Wisconsin DNR, where we started doing some river planning many years ago and reviewing with their ADA compliance officer on such a launch. And we actually had a conversation with the Minnesota DNR. They have not permitted something like this before, but it is a sizable structure based on, again, the Mississippi River being fluctuating a fair amount, and obviously the velocity of the water and scouring. The structure itself has a lot built underneath it to really be beefy. So when you look at these cost estimates that we'll share, you can see the cost is higher, but there is a fair amount of structure being built there to make sure that that stays in place during times of flooding and potential scour. There is then the darker lines here are pathways. There would be a pedestrian bridge across the ravine between the two parcels to connect the city's parcel and putting another park shelter with some picnic tables as well on this side. And then there would be access, which you can kind of see the lighter colors would be more of natural trails down below within the floodplain for, just additional enjoyment within the park space itself. And then to kind of give you, we've been working on several other water trails across the country actually currently, and so we've been working on some other graphics and more ways to refine the stepped approach to make it more accessible for all users. And with this, we're looking at different ways for people to offload themselves at the top of the launch and how they might be able to access down the launch with a combination of removable handrails, some stepping stones along the side. So if somebody is disabled from the waist down, could lift themselves down with their arms between steps and different stepping stones. There's an accessible bench for somebody to either rest at or obviously unload themselves from a wheelchair or such. So we're continuing to refine this. We're trying to make it as low maintenance as possible because we know when the river comes up, the potential of debris coming down could damage it, as well as you don't want to have to deal with like a floating pier because then you might have to remove it to make sure that a tree or something wouldn't hit it and cause severe damage to it. So something like this is more at grade. That's what the DNRs typically like to see, so that it's built right into the shoreline. We've even done some options of coloring the concrete to make it more natural, top dressing some of the erosion armament around it. So we really work closely with the permitting agencies to find this the best option that works for them through their permitting process. And we've already, during this planning process, worked with the local permitter to discuss the project and what that would look like, and they didn't see any issues with it so far. So just another quick view here. Just a couple pictures. So the one on the upper top is a picture actually of one installed. It doesn't have all the amenities I just showed you, but this one was on a ribbon cutting day. They finally had it open. I know they've added more amenities around and to support it, but big paddling day. So all these boats actually came out of the water at this point, up the steps off of the river. There's a couple other options and variations that we can look at once site survey is completed and fully reviewing the elevations of the river at the different sites that we're talking about here with different leveling pads and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to build them, but we've used more of a structure that's built in the ground with the step support on top. With that, in the report, we do have cost estimates building out the full plan, and this one obviously covers the whole area of the Three Rivers parcel as well as the city's parcel. So as Marty mentioned, we're looking at different grant opportunities, and I think once, this, if the plan gets approved tonight, this is really the stepping stone that the National Park Service is looking to push forward to utilize as the document to start planning for other access points within the community and connecting the dots for people to paddle between. And I think that's what's really important. And I think you'll start to see the momentum, especially after that meeting that Marty mentioned in April, where people get together and start talking about what this looks like as they work as a partnership. The other concept that or other site that we looked at was the LC Stevens, and you guys are obviously well in advance of building that out. And I think this is even further, obviously, since we've been there to see, the development of where the plan is at. But we were asked on the very far side of the park where it was already originally planned to put a canoe kayak access. but we looked at it closer with some grades, again, to implement from the parking lot that was built and the trail crossing, to look at how we might be able to work within the slopes here. And so you can kind of see some lighter lines. You probably can see them closer in the actual report of the contours. The bank is pretty steep at this location, so there are quite a few steps planned for the canoe kayak launch itself. Again, we are trying to angle it so it's not perpendicular with the flow of the river, more blended in as with parallel with the flow, providing armament, so such as riprap around the edges of the pavement and the actual launch itself. In order to also get this in and cut it in with an ADA slope trail, there is some retaining wall that would be implemented along the trail to provide that access and obviously deal with the varying elevations of the site itself. And again, with that, there is the cost estimate in there on what's being planned for that. Obviously, since the project, the upper portion has been built to now where we would be looking to add in the launch, some of these costs and amounts might change based on the site conditions, but we did try to provide a contingency and trying to cover the cost overall with that just for planning purposes, so that these can be utilized for applying for various grants in the upcoming years. So just lastly, with the overall plan, we've talked about the potential for other trail partners, and that's really the piece. Once you start to connect the dots with other communities, the funding really starts to come forth. We've been working on a trail for the last 7-8 years, and it continues to get funding in many opportunities, not only for access points on the water bodies, but other connections and supporting amenities in the communities because they built this partnership. And that's the exciting part that we're seeing aligned with the National Park Service and the upcoming meetings. And I know even one of the first things is once people start hearing about this more, they're going to want to paddle more and figure it out, even though the launch points aren't built. So maybe signage needs to be implemented, and National Park Service is interested in talking with the city as to what that might be looking like, because they'll be setting the tone for the upper portion of the National Water Trail. After tonight, if the plan is approved, the Minnesota DNR had asked us to also share the plan with them. They'd like to get it posted on their website and then also designate this section as a state water trail. I know we've talked to the water trail coordinator, and she's excited to start talking about the Minnesota or the DNR properties along the trail, to combining efforts with the city on developing those even further. So specifically the launch point at the Crow and Mississippi confluence there, maybe getting restrooms built and earmarking funding to help build that other infrastructure along there, and looking at other opportunities as well. As Claire has mentioned, we'll talk to Forest and the National Park Service with the plan. I know he's looking at next steps. And then obviously the opportunity of looking at other potential funding, especially since the built infrastructure continues to shake down in various avenues of existing funding pots as well as new funding opportunities. Those are the things that we'd be looking to help align this overall project with, to help support the projects. And so not only did we just only do 2 concepts, but there's a lot of recommendations in there to support the other items that can support the river as well as your other projects within the community. So I know we've had a fun time planning this. It's been very exciting, and I think towards the end here it really picked up a lot of momentum with the National Park Service, and I think that's the exciting piece for the city to move forward, because you'll be on the national radar at this point to really publicize what you have going here. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and the action is just to accept it, correct? All right.
Make a motion to accept the plan.
I'll second.
Okay, Dave. Any more discussion? Go ahead, Dave.
One area in your recommendations, you mentioned updating the Chapter 7 of the comprehensive plan as being something that we would need to do. So I'm just mentioning that in our broader discussion about the amendments that we're looking at, that I'm not sure what the scope of this one would need to be, but we need to have that on our radar as well. I would like to learn more about the endowment fund that was mentioned, creating a 501c3 to accept money from other contributors, and it seemed like that also had some advantages in terms of some of these grants, being able to apply to that directly. So I'd like to know, I'd like to understand that better. I was real glad to hear about the National Park Service. I had no idea there was a National Water Trail envisioned for this stretch of the river, so, you know, it seems like we hook our wagon to that as much as we can. And, you know, they can claim all the credit for it, I guess, if they need to, but that's,
Don't
you
care
know,
as
if
long
it
as they
gets it
fund
funded, I don't care.
Which they will.
Yeah. And then the canoe launches, and I know you're not, and kayak launches, I know you're not, these aren't designs, but I live on that stretch of river, and, you know, I think that there needs to be a lot of thought in there, because where I live, it goes up and down more than 8 feet from spring to fall, and this thing ought to be accessible all times of the summer.
Yep.
So that needs to be brought into play as well.
To piggyback on some of your comments, like I said, the Parks Committee was really excited about this, and I saw it before. I've seen this presentation now 3 times, and I'm still excited for it every time I see it. So thank you for that. And you know, I think it was made clear that one of governmental above the city that's really interested in this. I think that's a great thing. That's a good limelight on the city of Dayton, which we always appreciate. And I really do think this is a really great long-term investment for the city of Dayton in the coming years, for all the reasons that were laid out, and probably more we haven't thought of yet, but I'm really excited for this. So thank you for everyone's work so far.
And who, Marty, would you be the one kind of focused on keeping
The ball rolling?
Yep, keeping the ball.
Yeah, I've been kind of driving this pretty much from the get-go. I'd still be involved from the Dayton aspect, but I think that at some stage the National Park Service will champion this. They have much more resources. They've got 71 miles of river there that, you know, this would link into. So I think there will be a transition, but I would definitely still like to be involved with the process all the way along since we got it this far. It's kind of been a pet project for me for the last couple of years. So.
Okay.
So my other question around this, and I know we're just adopting the plan tonight, but we do have dollars in our current 2023 budget to start taking some action. So I don't know that we can do anything with it tonight, but I want to make sure that we're moving ahead because we do have dollars available to continue to do this.
And we're looking at something for the Stevens Park there, and we're going to have to negotiate some extension with these guys to the contract that we've got because they've fulfilled their contract with us to get this document done. So I think that we need to discuss the scope of work with these guys to keep the ball rolling as well. So yes, we're aware of those funds. There will be some usage for it. It might get moved to next year when we do the next phase of Stevens, but that would tie in with the National Park Service grant money coming in as well, which would help us to do that.
And certainly it would be a Stevens thing first.
Yeah.
With the good thing later.
It's kind of the low-hanging fruit there because
Right,
we don't know what the time frame for Three Rivers Park District to move on their part of the line. And I don't know if there's a lot of discussion to add there. Maybe it's one of those where we build it and they reimburse it. I'm not sure. We haven't even had that conversation yet.
I don't need an answer tonight, but when we looked at the budget for the Good and Park piece, how much of that would, because most of that work is on Three Rivers Park District land,
Correct.
how much of that percentage-wise, and again, you can get back to me, but falls both ways?
Yeah, I mean, that's just there for us to apply for grant funding and stuff like this. We haven't had that conversation yet, but that's obviously something that's going to happen further down the line. And, you know, like you say, the majority of the work is on there, so we would anticipate them having a lion's share of those costs.
We might get the good side of 80-20 this time, Scott.
On that one.
Okay.
Nitros are right here, just keep them in mind.
Any other discussion? Okay, we had a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting it?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Item I.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Is that you again?
I'm Jason Quisberg.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mayor, Council, Mr. Quisberg came down with an illness late this afternoon,
Cool.
so we had to basically.
Okay, so no,
we are filling in with Marty tonight. He is
All right.
our new city engineer.
Yeah.
What was that?
And I got a surprise at 4:30 when I looked at my email to say,
Correct.
can you manage this? So I'm flying this one. Okay, so
Did it
this
come with PowerPoint? Yeah, it did.
Yep.
yeah,
I'm a little disappointed.
It wouldn't be a
that Mr.
Quizbook
isn't
presentation without a PowerPoint. So this is to approve going out for bids on the Zanzibar Lane Improvements project. I'll run through the slideshow here. The previous project, which was done a couple of years ago in front of the Public Works building, is highlighted, and the new section is in the blue there with the arrow pointing to it. That's going to connect 125th to South Diamond Lake Road. So the road improvements and paving is 1.25 miles. We're going to use Portland stabilization underneath the whole length of that. The purpose of doing that is to prevent us having huge costs for doing soil corrections under there. The Portland will act as a stabilization. So we'll go through, we'll mill out 12 inches of material of the existing gravel, and then we'll put it back down with the Portland blended in with it, and that will set up just like it has done on the other part of Zanzibar and up at 117th. We've also used it at Public Works, and it seems to do a very good job on stabilising those difficult soils. There's no culvert, stormwater or bridge improvements on this project. It's just a shape and pave it, if you like, with the stabilisation, obviously. And with the bridge, I think there was some talk of adding signage there, so people are aware of it as they come into it, so they're aware of it being just a very narrow bridge there. There are the 4 stages of the project. We've done the preliminary design, the plans and specs are ready to go, and the next phase is the bidding, and then if we accept the bids, then we'll move to construction. So tonight we're just approving going out to bid. Project cost estimate. So the estimated construction cost is 1.3 million. The engineering for the proposal is 139,000. Soil testing and other incidentals is 30,000, and there's a 66,000 contingency, which is 5% of the project. This has gone up a little bit by 60,000 from the previous estimate. Hopefully we'll come back down a little bit if we don't have to use a contingency, but that's where we're at. So project information, a project cost estimate is 156,700. Pavement Management Fund is the funding source. And then there's a schedule here. Approved plans and specs tonight. Then we can get them advertised. The bid opening is scheduled for March 28th. Review bids, award contract April 11th if we have reasonable bids for that. And then construction will be in the summer with a completion date of September 29th.
Wait a month from now to open the bids.
Yeah, it's generally, with these things, we usually have a 4-week window for those. Just because they don't, the contractors at this time of year have a lot of bids that they're putting together, so it takes them a while to get to it. So if you have a bigger window, you get a better response. So recommendations that approve plans and specs, authorise the ad for bids. That's going to be a $6,200 cost. That's all you're committing to tonight. And then any going crazy here. Any further, if you do go forward, then that will have to be approved by the council once we get the bids in. So we're just going to put this out to bid tonight.
Are we still, there will be no right-of-way required? Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, because we're not doing anything other than shaping and paving the existing road there.
So, Jason, what? So I have 2 problems to this, and I remain to have 2 problems to this. What the traffic impact's going to be in Fernbrook, and since we're doing a big road study this summer to find out what we need and how much we have to fund it, this seems really early to me to be throwing out a huge chunk of money.
Don't get Jason fired.
And actually, yeah, you can say what you want.
Yeah, say what I like here.
And I want to add to that, because to me, with this study that we're doing,
oh yeah,
That is really going to show us what kind of money we're going to need over the next 10 years.
And I don't disagree. I think that we've had a lot of discussion about why we want to make this road blacktop. I know there's certain residents who would really appreciate it being blacktopped and stuff like that.
And I'm guessing you guys would too,
Oh, we
because
would
now
too.
you don't have to grade it. But it is.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also a lot better for for your vehicles and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff, and
no, I
snow
get that.
plowing and all that stuff. So there's a lot of
And
good benefits
Get
for
an
us.
earful from Leo.
I mean, today we
I
also.
don't disagree that tar is much nicer than gravel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree, but this is a want, not a need, for 100% in my eyes.
So all I
At
guess
this stage in the game, I won't say that it's nice and I like it, but before we know what other road costs are going to be, I think it's premature.
When would the right time be? Is the
Well,
question,
originally it was on the CIP for 26, but staff moved it to now.
I think it's been up and down on the CIP several times, to be quite honest, because
Originally
it was going to be
26.
originally done when we did the stretch in front of Public Works. So we were going to try and do the whole stretch at that time, but we didn't because of the budget constraints at that time. But since then, it's been moved around quite a lot.
I think there are definitely residents that want it.
Mm-hmm.
I've also had calls from residents that absolutely do not want it
Mm-hmm.
because of what it's going to do to traffic.
Sure.
So
traffic where? Just
on Fernbrook and 125th. This is providing
And
a
the
shortcut
speeds.
to Otsego and Elk River. That's what this does.
So I would maybe add a couple thoughts to the conversation, which is
Sure.
this is for the most part already planned for, budgeted, so we're not like pulling money.
No, it's not.
Well, this is out of our capital funds, so
Yeah.
it's proposed in our capital funds. What happens in the capital funds are
Right, it's all fungible.
It's planned. Doesn't mean it has to happen. That's what we've talked about with CIP. Is everything that's in there is planned.
Yep.
It has to be then secondly approved prior to.
And in the
actual-
plans, you've seen the plans. We very loosely plan things.
Yep.
And so that's why I think, to me, this traffic study, or this road study this summer is important. And if we aren't going to worry about what funding we have, I got to kind of wonder why we're doing it. So,
I would also add, tonight we talked about, we have two really bad intersections on the north side of town, at Dayton Road and North Diamond Lake, and Dayton Road and Pineview. You have 20 to 25% of the homes in Dayton live between Dayton Road and North Diamond Lake Road. And when they want to go south to get their groceries at Target, or they want to go to Maple Grove or whatever, they're going to go past both of those intersections that we all agree are really bad in order to get down there. This road then reduces the amount of traffic that's flowing past those to head south, which is good. And last time the county was here, not this time, but last time, they mentioned the best way to reduce accidents and create safer flow of traffic is provide more options for people to use.
oh, I have no doubt that more options is good. I'm just saying that 1.5 out of our current transportation budget is a big chunk of money.
I'm not saying
And
it's
I think
not.
we should wait a year.
Or at least until we get the study, to me.
You're talking about the study that comes back and, like we just talked about tonight?
It's later this summer.
No, it's
This is that traffic study.
It's the
Oh, the
survey
roads.
van that's going
Yeah,
around the whole city
Isn't
is
that
going to scan the
primarily
roads.
road condition, though?
That is
It's
road
condition
yeah.
and how much it's going to cost to fix those conditions.
Yeah, it gives us the various modelling options.
So-
I mean, we got, to me, we got East French Lake Road that it's going to need work on.
This road's way worse than East French Lake Road. I've driven both, and I can guarantee you this road's way worse than East French Lake Road to drive.
Oh,
I'd agree with you, Matt, because this road is already a dirt road.
yeah, it's a dirt
And
road.
it's already,
Dirt road.
and it's
So you wanna
already
do
highly.
Xanthus too?
It's already got a high
dirt.
number of traffic on it. I drive this way every day, and I see a bunch of people take 125th to get to exactly where Matt's talking about, those neighborhoods up on that side of the town.
Yeah, we can beat this all we want, but I think we can,
I was
unless
trying to
anybody's
listen to
got
what
some
Travis
new
said.
That was
stuff.
Travis, but we were kind of cutting him off.
Travis, can you repeat what you said, please?
Oh, sorry. I was just saying that to me, this whole thing is like trying to pick my words good here. We want to alleviate traffic off of Fernbrook, and to Matt's point is, how do you do that? And it's providing more options, and understandably so that this might be a cut through to some people, but this also is an access to Dayton residents to their neighborhoods, and it's already a spot that's already highly used. I think it's just in our best nature to make it a more solidified option for them to use rather than just, to me, it's seasonal. It gets money in the spring, becomes a nightmare because people are still going to use it. I think we just have to create the avenues to alleviate that pressure from Fernbrook and those dangerous intersections. And this is that small bite out of that big donut that gets us to that bigger goal.
So Travis, you believe this is going to reduce Fernbrook traffic?
I believe this will help alleviate some of the pressures that you see on Fernbrook. Some of the accesses that you'll see from like 129th and Pineview up there on that roundabout. And when you see it on Pineview and South Diamond, Pineview and Dayton River Road, those people that are trying to access those areas actually have another way to get through there other than taking that straight corridor or the path that I just mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody else have anything?
There's lots of roadways, so yeah.
So a couple of thoughts, and not necessarily a conclusion from me, but one thing that I know from looking at it is that we put 1.4 million in the budget for this, and we're at 1.6 as I estimate. I know we don't know for sure where the bids will come in, but we're already in the ballpark of 200 off budget before we get into it. And so that concerns me, that where that other 200 or whatever the number ends up being comes from, because it looks like it'll probably be more than what we've got.
Would you like me to answer that question?
No,
sure.
We have enough.
We have it.
We have enough money to do that. Part of that will be funded by the IBDPI grant that we got for doing some work with Graco. We got a $400,000 grant working with Graco to do their portion. So of an innovative business development project initiative. I think that's what it was called, grant.
Yeah.
It was basically, they got $2 million. We got
We got a cut
$400,000
of
of
it,
that.
yeah.
Correct. So that will be helping us fund it. That will 100% go into the pavement management fund to replace and also assist with this project to be able to push through.
That'll go in there no matter what.
Correct.
So,
Correct. Yeah, correct. So, but the answer
So
to
we're
the
not
$200,000
robbing another fund to
Correct.
to do
We're
this.
not.
At least not at this
And
point.
that transportation fund is always kind of a bucket that we put money in, and then as roads need work, we take money out. So the planning, even the term planning there is really loose.
But hopefully with our study, we will have a bit more of a plan.
Well, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
exactly.
got that opportunity, but because this is, to me, this is something of a Band-Aid fix in that we're not touching the bridge, we're not doing anything else with the roadway but paving it, which I think gives us some advantages, but it seems possible that, we're back at this road before it's lived its full useful life. And so to some extent, this could be some throwaway cost, and that pushes me toward doing it sooner rather than later. We get more of the life of that investment out of it.
Yeah.
Before we come back and have to do something on a bigger scale.
And I think that's the way that they've engineered this. Is it's going to give us a 20-year lifespan until the parkway gets there, or however that all aligns. So that was the idea. It improves the road, and it won't be a throwaway cost. If we did it 10 years down the road, then you'll be throwing away 10 years worth of road.
Our biggest concern with staff is if you do exactly what Councilmember Frashant is saying, is that if we don't do it now and we do it in 5 years, because that's the right time to do it, now the Parkway is 5 years closer to being there. Because we all know, based on what direction was given tonight, that the Parkway is going to end up at Zanzibar, and that will need to be improved.
And then there's more requirements.
I will
Then
be
there'll be a
surprised if we get that parkway there in 20 years. I will be
Very
shocked.
well. Yeah, sure. Good. But like I said, it
In
could.
which case, we'll have to redo something again.
Very well.
Again.
Very well.
So-
But like I said,
Okay.
it's an idea, and then.
Any more?
there's-
Why don't we just go to a motion in a second? I need a motion,
I'll motion.
and I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion on this?
I just want to confirm that this is only for the bidding process. So
Well-
you are only approving $6,200. What, you have not approved the $1.6 million yet.
I realize
Just
that.
what-
We've already done the engineering part of it, right?
I was going to say, you've already.
Yeah.
how many
You've done.
steps?
We've
not
done
lot-
100
actually, I
and
think
some thousand bucks
I
already.
think half of it is actually during the design.
There'd be
actually,
no
plus.
reason to go out for bids if you're not going to go on.
Right.
because then you're just wasting.
Not necessarily. If it comes back and it says $2 million,
Oh, sure.
we're going to go, absolutely
Yep.
not. There's no way.
Okay, so we got a motion and a second, and any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Sorry if that didn't come across.
How many is that? Is that 4?
Okay, all those opposed say no.
No.
No. So that passes 3-2.
I'll turn
Okay.
back to Martin now then.
Huh?
I'll turn back to Marty now.
Item J.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is an easy one because the applicant has requested to table this item until the next meeting.
Oh,
so,
jeez.
the reason being is there's a couple of issues that are related to some platting and how the title work is being completed on this property. There is running into some issues with title work to final plat. So it may
That's a
be.
bad time to run in.
I concur. We received this last week. This information, so it's been
Okay,
last
so
minute.
we are just,
Gonna table it.
Until 3:14.
Yeah, you'll see it on the next meeting, and if not, then we will pick it up from there. But
okay, if there are no other issues, we will be adjourned. We're adjourned.